Sweets and Lisa here. So here we are, ready to go down the spiral with you and overthink a little bit about life, ourselves, everything else that we can think of,
We'd like to overthink all the things.
all the things. And we're good for it, right? So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Sure. Are we good for it? Are we better off for it? I'm not sure.
Well, this is helpful. I'll tell you
Yeah,
why,
yeah.
because usually it all lasts in my head versus being able to say it out loud. Yes.
Yeah, that's what we do. We say it out loud. We get comfortable with it. All
Yes.
the extra thoughts, all the thoughts we don't have to have.
You got it. That's the name of the game. So we hope you find it helpful too. So
All
um
right. I think it's your turn.
it is.
All right. So tell me what's on your mind.
Yeah. So I have a word, usually but it's a two-worder. It's not a one-worder. It's people pleasing. I knew.
You
I
mean like
knew you would do
uh,
that.
every day of
Yes.
yeah,
Every
all the
day.
time. So people pleasing. I read something recently, interestingly, about people pleasing,
Huh.
because I'm at that age where hormones are fluctuating in ways that are very uncomfortable for me and the people around me also.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, Apparently, high
Mhm.
levels of estrogen cause a desire for people pleasing. And as your estrogen levels drop towards perimenopause and menopause, any overthinkers out there that are medical people, if I'm wrong, please correct us. We have an
Or
email now.
don't.
Or no,
Or justify
because
yourselves for
I've
your
been
pain.
believing what I'm about to say for for many weeks now.
That's it.
Um, and that when your estrogen level drops, you start to feel that less, which I guess makes sense.
Makes
We
perfect
don't
sense.
have the need probably to be raising individuals and keeping a household together at
Yeah.
some point, and so that people pleasing probably becomes a little bit less important. But that being said, I understand the feeling. I'm right in there and have had many years of people pleasing experience. So I'm
Yes.
looking forward to our conversation today.
So it's interesting because what actually made me think about this is so I think it was like last week I had so much going on and there was a sense of just like how am I going to get it all in?
Mhm.
And what I did was I was watching something and a person was saying, what if you looked at your time like it was money? So, right, like every hour was $100. And I started to think about that.
Great.
But so then I went, of course, go figure, like I went down the rabbit hole and I was like, so I looked at my calendar real quick and I saw certain meetings or certain even like friend things that I was going to and started to ask myself like the reasons that I'm going or do I really need to be there? And I started to like kind of go down the rabbit hole because I was like, it, you know, am I do like the question that arose for me is, am I doing a lot of things still uh, that to make sure that people are comfortable, but they might not even be needing it, and I'm thinking that they're needing it, and so that's just made me think about like can you fully stop people pleasing? Do you need to look at your schedule in a different way? Like, am I doing this because I'm trying to make someone happy? And are there parts of it where you're like, yeah, it'll never fully go away? And
Yeah, that's a
yeah,
great question. Yeah.
yeah,
I think, I also think it's really related to boundary setting, right? I think one thing that I've learned over the last however many years of just continuous tries at self-improvement is that boundaries are hard for me.
yeah,
Um, but when it was framed differently for me, it was interesting. It's boundaries, and you'll know this already because you are who
mhm,
you are, but boundaries aren't about the other person's actions. The boundaries are about what you're doing, right? So
yeah,
it's like when this happens, I'm going to do this. So it to me, and then it relates to like people pleasing in the sense of if I feel like I have to do that thing to please that person,
yeah,
then that's a boundary that I would have to set for myself. And then it just raises the question of like, am I doing it to please that person? Maybe. Also, does it make me happier or accomplish a goal for me? I mean, I guess that's the companion question, right? So
Yeah.
I might be doing something because that's what this other person wants me to do. But then I think sometimes I check in on like, okay, I want to do that thing because it's something that somebody else needs me to do. And then the question for me is like, am I getting anything out of it other than making this person happier or contributing to the relationship? I mean, I think you can also justify people pleasing in different ways too, right?
Hmm. I do like does the people pleasing piece like when you're talking I does it have the influence that we actually think it does?
Right. I don't know.
That's the thing that I'm wondering more and
Yeah.
more as I'm getting older. Like, I wonder if me doing something for someone else because I think that that would make them happy, is that the thing?
Well, and also, does it have an unintended consequence of creating a pattern in that relationship
Yeah.
where you are doing the people pleasing and that other person is relying on that always? You know what I mean? Like you're creating a dynamic
Yeah.
by always saying yes, that could ultimately damage the relationship
Yeah.
in some sense, right? I mean, I
And
have
that's
heard about that. Like, if you say yes to everything, then your no or your what is that? If you say yes to everything, then your no means nothing or
yeah,
something. You know what I
that
mean?
works. Yeah, that's right. Like, yeah, that's a thing. And I think, right, if you're saying two, no, but I wonder so the reason I was thinking about it more is because I was like, if you, the correlation of not saying no, right, to your point, often or when necessary, do you end up losing your sense of self even more
Yeah.
the more and more you people please? And I wonder if that leads to a depression or an apathy. I just like sometimes you wonder like, well, what is it for? They're gonna get their way, or I'm gonna have to do it the way they want it. And I just, yeah, I'm thinking about it.
Yeah. I mean, yes, I think
Yes.
yes. That's the experience that I've had in my life. And almost to the point of, losing yourself in the sense I like there was a time in my life I didn't even know what I wanted. And
Yeah.
and I had gotten to the point of people pleasing in one of my relationships that was significant,
Yeah. Yeah.
where when that person would say to me, "Well, then what do you want?" I had no answer. Like
Yeah.
if I was just like even that idea of like when your people pleasing changes over time, right? So in the beginning you might be like enthusiastically, yeah, let's do that thing because you really want to invest in the relationship and it doesn't really matter. You're really not upset by it. But then as the dynamic of the relationship changes, your people pleasing might not be as enthusiastic, and then all of a sudden that person is like, well, what changed? And it
Yeah.
brings up everything, right?
Yes.
That's
Yes.
been around those decisions. And it's really not about that decision anymore. It's really about like the whole dynamic of the relationship. And then, but then it for that person who's experiencing the other end of the people pleasing, it's
Yeah.
like, well, I just don't understand what happened. Why aren't you excited to do this thing anymore? Because I wasn't honest at the beginning and
Yeah.
to say like, fine, I'll do it, but it's not my favorite thing, or I
Yeah.
don't know. Because I do think there is something to be said for like you're not always going to have your own way in a relationship either. Like a relationship is a two-way street. Sometimes you are
Hmm.
going to do things that you don't love
Yes.
for that other person, for the investment in the relationship, but I think maybe honesty has to be part of it. What do you
I
think?
agree. And I think like the more I agree about the honesty, and you're not always, life is trade-offs. And I think sometimes going into it being like you're going to get someone who loves everything about you or any of that stuff, that's just not real life. But I do think that if you are someone who leans towards more people pleasing majority of the time, and you're not creating your own sense of self with that other person, you actually end up showing them someone you're actually not. And so when they start to think like you've changed, the reality is like it's not that you changed, you just had someone, another mask on for the whole time kind of thing.
Well,
So,
I'm going to throw something at you because when you
yeah.
said people pleasing, I was thinking in my personal life.
Hmm.
What are your thoughts about people pleasing at work in a leadership capacity? Because that's something I've been thinking about recently too. Like, what is the difference between people pleasing and servant leadership?
Yeah.
I think servant leadership is this phrase that we've talked about before, can be tricky, right?
It's so tricky.
And I think that some leaders might feel like they're people pleasing,
Hmm.
right? When they're exhibiting some leadership skills or exhibiting some characteristics of servant leadership. And also, I think that can get tricky. Like when you are, like when is the time when you clarify your expectations, and when is the time when you say to someone, how can I help you achieve that goal that we both know you need to achieve? Do you know what I'm saying? Like, I think that some people can conflate those two things.
Well, and here's the thing, what I think it's interesting is I think that the system creates personas for us sometimes too. Because, like, so we are both in education, right? And I think that sometimes the system lends itself to say, well, a leader in an educational system should really have the most empathy. They should have, right? They should be there for you at every moment, at every turn.
Hmm.
And yes, they should, every leader should be there like when there are things or whatnot. And even for teachers, I think sometimes like I always like you have you ever like you going home from school and you say, oh, that teacher hates me because right, she put up a boundary and said, no, you have to get your homework in on time.
Hmm.
Right. And so like there's a part of me that I think that it's hard to come up against that systematic persona. And so when you do a boundary or like try to do it differently for the better of the whole, if people's expectations are something different, I think you have a problem then, right? And
Yeah.
so yeah, I think like it's taken me a long time because I say this and hoping my teams even see this out of me. I do have a posture of like wanting to be hands on, but also it comes out of a place sometimes of people pleasing. It is, I want them to have good thoughts about me.
Hmm.
And then, but sometimes, right, like I'm no good to anyone if I've said yes to 1,000 different things, when in reality, it's going off of what I think they need. I'll give you a great example. I told you I had looked at my schedule and I'm going to ask, right, one of, a team member if they really needed me at this meeting, right? And so like kid was doing well, all the things. And I asked, and the teacher was like, "Yeah, Sweets, that's totally fine." And in my mind, I think I had said yes to this meeting as a posture of making sure I'm there for them and all of that. And it's because I'm systematically trying to meet this character of, no, I'm this leader for you guys or whatnot, where it doesn't always make sense to even have it. And you end up suffering, not in the sense of like suffering in the sense of your time and your energy, and then I'm no good to anyone if I'm run ragged, so mhm.
Yeah, and I do think it's interesting that you brought up system, right, as a word.
Yeah,
When you're thinking, because it sounds a little bit like personality, right?
yeah,
Like there's a little bit of like, what kind of person am I? Like you just said that,
yeah,
like what kind of
yeah,
person do you want to be? But I think it's helpful to think of almost everything as the system, right? The system
hmm,
that you're creating and the results you're getting with that system in terms of
yeah,
work.
yeah,
Because I'm thinking about what happens when, just like what I was talking about before, when you say yes, 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 and you're just doing it because you're being nice,
yeah,
and you have to say no,
yeah,
the unintended consequence of that messaging to that
yes,
person who
yes,
wasn't clear that you were just doing it to be nice that
Yes.
person now has an expectation that you're always going to be there
That's
because
right.
it's probably appropriate for you to be there because you've been there the whole time, and then you say no, and it's like, wait, what? And I do think many times, obviously, our teachers are in a posture of people pleasing also
Mhm.
with us
Yes. Yeah.
and their principals and what have you, um, and so that there might not be a safe enough environment. Maybe we haven't created a psychologically safe enough place for them to
Yeah.
ask that question and say, wait, why this meeting? Or
Right.
why did you say no this time? You've always said yes.
Yes.
Because
Great
right, it
point.
goes both ways. So like if there's not like underpinning that interaction, if there's not like a culture of safety,
Hmm.
then
Hmm.
that can just simmer, and each of those
Yes.
little slights, just kind of misunderstood slights,
Yeah.
can just kind of like ultimately just like bubble up to the top until people are like, I don't know what she's doing, or I don't know what he's doing. I don't understand how they're making decisions, or there's favoritism, or, that's, I think, where those kinds of
Well, that's a really
cultural
good
fights
point
happen.
too, because it can actually backfire on you because someone
Mhm.
can eventually question, like, well, why are you choosing this meeting or choosing this and not the other if you're not really like rooted in this idea of like, what's the need here? Like what's everybody's role or part. Otherwise, it looks like, hey, you're over here quite pretty often and not over here. Why is that? And then then there's a different level of who you are as a leader, like taking a look at that. Hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I think we do it a lot.
Yeah,
I think we,
so much.
I think we do it a lot, and
Yeah,
I think if you zoom out, a people pleasing organization that is not intentional
yeah,
um, becomes it, and we even learn it, right? Like
yeah.
in your educator 101 or administrator 101 classes, it's like go for the quick wins, go for
Yes.
the,
Yeah. Yeah.
low hanging fruit. When you get there, fix the things that need fixing. You and I have been in a work environment where you might make something happen for one person that you feel is a quick win, but there's so
Yeah.
much chaos surrounding that in that place that one decision actually sets off a domino of unintended
That's right.
consequences and negativity, right? So
Yeah.
I'm kind of always on the side of like, yes, quick wins are nice, but don't do it if you are not being intentional and understand as much context around it as possible, because those quick wins and low hanging fruit, whatever that is, if the organization isn't cohesive,
Yes.
if there isn't direction and you fix something, you might be breaking something else that you're going to have to go back and deal with later. So, you think you're pleasing this person, but you're really harming the system.
That no good deed
And
goes unpunished. Yes.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah, I
Yeah.
just, I think that, I think we're blind to it sometimes because relationships is a huge part of what we hear in leadership literature. Like relationships matter, and they do matter.
Yes.
Um, but healthy relationships.
Yeah.
Like I don't know that we talk enough about like what a healthy dynamic is
Hmm.
in terms of effective relationships for leadership.
Well, I think about so like right when you think about people pleasing in systems, I think about like I think it's Amy Edmondson, her book Fearless Organization, and then it correlates with the research that Google did. I think it was called Google Aristotle, right? So like the psychological safety being number one. But the question, and so it's really cool when people list like, yeah, psychological safety, and you need empathy for that. You need, people need to really accept each other. And the question always becomes, well, how do you get there? Well, if you have an organization that is super people pleasing all the time, right? That's probably you're never going to get there, right? And
Yeah.
so the question always becomes like, how do you create, and it starts from the top, how do you create conditions where somebody says like no to this, but intentionally why no to that, yeah, and
Like
not
clear is
because
kind, right? Like I think we can be
yeah,
clear about the decisions, and then it gets to that intentionality piece. Like
yeah,
what are, if you can't, if the reason you're doing something
yes,
is to please another person, which we know we actually can't do. Like I
No,
cannot actually make someone pleased with
no,
my
no.
behavior, because if I could, I
Yeah,
would all day long, 24
yeah,
hours a day, everyone would be happy
yeah.
with me all the time.
Exactly. Yeah.
Can't do it. There's no physical or emotional or psychological way to make someone pleased.
No, no,
So, like, it's actually an impossible thing to measure,
that's right.
and to know, to your first question of like, do I even know that it's working? You
Yeah.
don't. We'll never know.
No, or is it a way that I'm just trying to make it life more certain for me? Like, am I pretending that I can control something? To your point, like, I don't think I've ever pleased anybody. Like, right? Like, even if I'm sorry, I don't believe that to my core. Even if it's for like a second where someone's like, oh, she told a really funny joke,
I love
whatever.
this conversation though.
Yes, yeah,
I would be
no,
in this.
this is it. And so I just feel like I think there is so much more freedom if there's less like if we have more courageous conversations around and not do as much people pleasing. Again, that still means we do hard things. That still means, right, like like we still show up for each other. It's never a perfect formula, but I do think there's something to be said about trying to control another person's thoughts and actions by your own. It's in a therapeutic lens, it's like codependency, right? Like that's like it's just not true, and yet we do it all the time. There's this sense of yeah,
I love that you said that. It's like it's a way to control what's happening,
yeah,
even with things that are out of our control, which relationships really are out of our control. Like I think because it involves more than one person, you will
yeah,
never know the internal thoughts of that other person. And I think we want the illusion of stability, and that the relationship is what we think it is, when
yes.
like in actuality it's never, we never have a full understanding of a relationship that we're in, right? We
Oh
could
my
never.
gosh. That feels like that belongs on a t-shirt. That's too long on a t-shirt. Maybe just
That's
like
going to be a
write it down in a
really, somebody's going to be staring at my chest for a very long time to read that
like
whole
a
thing.
dissertation on
Yeah,
it.
I know.
Oh my God, totally. So,
But I think that's like that, and it like even zooming out further, like
mhm.
isn't that what we're always trying to do, is control our surroundings to the extent
Mhm.
that we can control? And the reality is we have control over literally nothing. We
Nothing.
have control over what we do and what we say, and that's it. And I don't even think that our perceptions sometimes are so off when
Yeah.
we think we know what other people want.
Yeah.
We think we know what would make someone happy, or what would make someone feel good, and
Yeah.
sometimes what makes, I mean, in a school setting or a district setting, like, and I would think in any other organization too, what feels good to some people is going to feel bad to other people. Like there's no possible way, right? So if I'm not, if I'm people pleasing the person that is not following the rules all the time, right?
Yeah.
Because you're trying to build relationship and rapport, and then maybe someday they'll follow the rules because I've
Yeah.
been so nice. Like while you're doing that thing, the people who are there doing their jobs and
Yeah.
fulfilling their expectations every day are getting more and more annoyed with you, and you're deteriorating that relationship because of how they see you interacting with somebody who is actually not doing what they should be doing, right?
Absolutely. And I think two things I think about, oh, we don't see the world as it is, we see the world as we are. So there you go. So I think like to that point. And the second point I think is I lost it. And that's all it took.
I love that for
You
you, because
know,
it
no,
happens to me all the time. But it made me think of, in a classroom setting, like how
yes.
many times does a teacher, I mean, I hear this from kids all the time, like we all have these positive behavior incentives or
Mhm.
whatever, and you're constantly handing one out to the kid that's like doing the thing that's expected, right? Because
Yes.
their behaviors are so unexpected all the
Yeah.
time that like they finally do something that everyone else is doing, and you're like, yay, and you give them this
Yeah.
huge, like, well, the message to all the other kids that have been doing that thing is like, wait,
Yeah.
what? Like,
Yeah.
how come I'm constantly following the rules? And like and I never got like a big round of applause because I'm constantly doing what the teacher is asking. It just, it like made me think of all that. I mean, just
Totally. Yeah.
interactions between humans are hard. That's my,
It that's another t-shirt. Yeah, I mean, I think when you say that, like, I do think that in my experience, the more that I have found, and these are folks that I think that press on or have loved when I've people pleased, and I'm talking even like personal life, right? That the more that I've accommodated, um, there's an interesting pattern that sometimes can emerge. The more that I've accommodated, the more that they've actually needed, right? It doesn't stop.
yes.
The accommodation doesn't actually make the behavior stop. And in fact, right, like
Yeah,
it makes it worse. And
makes it
so
worse.
you'll sometimes feel like, oh, I'm finally done. I did this thing for them or whatever it might be, but then it just, the list gets longer, or and then, the underlying cause sometimes of the people pleasing is, right, am I enough? For some folks, not for all.
Yeah.
But and I think the minute that you don't feel like you've succeeded in that, or there's a feeling of that, then there's like a guilt or shame cycle of like, oh no. And then sometimes you even try to make up for it a little bit more in that.
Yeah.
So I think there's, it's so deep, actually, with all of that.
Well, that the other thing that has changed my perspective a little bit is recently I was listening to something. I
Yeah.
should start citing things,
We
but
we're so good
kind
at
of
not so good at
podcast.
that at that. We're like, that one thing.
That
We'll
one
give
thing.
credit eventually to people. Like, I don't know.
Somebody said this that is really smart.
Yeah.
They were talking about just the human condition, right? That there will always be a problem. Like there's no human that ever exists without problems or without uncomfortable things in their
Yeah.
lives. Or most. I'm sure there's somebody out there on a mountain somewhere like
Yeah.
meditating all the time,
Yeah.
but most of us. And so when you try to eliminate something that we consider would consider a problem for that person. We try to accommodate it. We try to please them. We try to what have you. What happens a lot of times is that the threshold for what is a problem just lowers.
Ooh.
So, their definition of problematic things just changes, so that they can accommodate a different problem in their lives because we exist with problems. We're not in a situation of perfection. And so, and not to say we don't want to remove barriers or challenges for people when we can, but
Yeah.
I do think, again, it comes down to intentionality. Like, is this a barrier that I need to remove right now? Is this a challenge for this person that needs to be removed? Because the answer might be yes, but the answer might also be like, no, not really. They can do that themselves if they want to, and you know what I mean?
Yeah, I really like that. Is it a barrier? And let me connect that with a story. When I was first doing my work, like years and years ago on people pleasing, I was someone, whenever someone had a problem, I immediately picked up and I solved it, right? Because I was aimed to please. And my counselor at the time was like, stop doing that. That was his therapeutic. It's like, knock that crap off. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, but a strategy is something very, very simple, is like with certain people, this is not with everybody, right? But a certain boundary push to the people that you're kind of talking about, let it go to voicemail. And here, right, the threshold of the problem, what you're talking about. So, something very interesting. Now, mind you, you think that's easy to do, but it wasn't, because, right, I was just wanting to meet people's needs.
Of course.
So I would have to wait the entire day before I can call that person back. And then when I did call them back, they had already called like 6 different people and talked to them. And right. So I
Yeah.
realized, what did that demystify for me? I realized I'm not that special, that, was it a problem? Like right. Is it a problem or is it that a barrier for them? Like all the things that I thought that I was helping or fixing, and it wasn't. And so a lot of it is like actually thinking through your thinking, talking about like, do they really need me, or what am I getting from this if I'm about to solve their problem for them?
Oh, and I'll put it in the
Yeah.
terms of being a parent, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of times as educators right now, we're coming up against students who have never had to deal with problems on their own, right? Because moms
Yeah.
and dads have sort of, plowed the way
Yeah.
and sort of removed barriers for them. Somebody
No.
smart said something else this week,
Yeah.
which was when we do something for a child, when we do
Uh-huh.
something for a child that they could do for themselves,
Hmm.
we rob them of their self-esteem to raise our own. And it's
Oh,
like, when I heard that, I was like, oh my God, that is every parenting guilt trip thing I've ever had
yeah.
in the 20, almost
So
21
good.
years I've been raising kids. Like,
Yeah.
in an era of comparative parenting,
Yeah.
you're looking on Facebook or Instagram and like, somebody does this for the kid's birthday and they're hanging streamers and filling the
Yeah.
room with balloons and they're waking up to like their perfect meal and
It's like a
a 8
parade
by
outside for
10
them.
blown up of
Yeah.
themselves and fat heads and yard signs
Oh my
and
God.
I'm in there like, oh shit, like I'm lucky I got a cake today.
Yeah,
Maybe
totally.
swearing, but like I got a cake,
Yeah.
I got their favorite cake and that's what we do. And I got them a
Yeah.
couple gifts. Like, the guilt thing that like trips in your
Yeah.
head, and then you start making up for it in different ways.
Hmm.
To your point, like, well, they forgot their lunch that day, or they forgot their
Yeah.
shoes or uniform, and then you're like, well, I can't do the huge birthday celebration, but I certainly can run their shoes over for them.
Yeah.
But the reality is, I'm not teaching them the consequences, right? They're
Yeah.
not gaining confidence and be able to pre-plan and take care of things for
Yeah.
themselves. It's for
Yeah.
when I'm not there, because I'm not
Yeah.
always going to be there. And so I think complexity in that arena for parents has only like grown over the last
Yeah.
couple of decades. And
I and
as it's become like this whole parenting has
but
become this thing.
but you nailed it for me because I'll tell you why. Because I think in general, when you think about whether it's adult to kid or adult to adult, we rob ourselves just by doing those types of things. Even when I show up to things, right, that I think I need to be, I'm robbing people of an authentic sense of self from me, but also the level of autonomy
Yeah.
that is created by a little of not getting my needs met by somebody else immediately, right? And I think there's something to be said about that. And I do think sometimes, and again, like that, the mental health pieces of a lot of the times is that we're waiting for somebody else to make it better for us.
Yeah.
Uh, and I think we
There's
don't,
no friction. There's no
there's no,
friction. There's no discomfort
no,
and ability to self-soothe or, figure out what you need.
yeah, yeah,
And then you just become more and more unable to do that,
yeah,
because
yeah,
your threshold of problem solving gets lower and lower and lower
yeah.
until you are dependent
Hmm.
on other people for your own emotional regulation. And then we wind up in a society where we have to teach kids how to emotionally regulate.
That's it.
Like,
Exactly. And then it's
that has become
tough.
our curriculum because they cannot do it. They cannot name or regulate their own emotions and behaviors.
I just saw on an article that Harvard Business Review, the number one thing in 23-24 that Chat GPT was used for. Can you guess?
Oh God, is it is it that? Is it emotionally regulating?
Therapy. Therapy.
Jeez. I mean,
So think if we think through that. So like something as simple as the conversation of people pleasing, but right? Like these are real things people are dealing with that people are asking chat for like mental health support.
well, and to
Uh,
get really like meta about what we're
yeah,
doing right now, like
yeah,
this is what we this is why why we have these conversations,
yeah,
right? So that we can understand what's
yeah.
happening in our own brain, so that we can bounce it off somebody else, so that we can handle our own stuff
That's it.
and not depend on other people.
Yes, and this is why we're doing this. Is to, we really need to think about our own thinking, and know we can take that on and still be okay.
Yeah,
Um,
and then communicate it. The thing that I'm
yeah,
taking away from this, like
yeah,
as I'm sitting here thinking, like, so what is how do we solve this, tension
hmm,
in leadership or in life or in relationships? I really think the key is this: it's communication.
it
Like, to
is.
just be aware of what you're thinking so it takes the metacognition, but then you need to, when you're in relationship with somebody else, be kind enough to explain yourself. It's not self-serving.
No,
It's kind.
it is kind.
Going to
In
be in
fact,
a relationship, then yeah.
it's Nicholas Carr's work. It's in the book The Shallows. I use this all the time. He says our brains were becoming more like jet skiers, where we really needed to be like scuba divers in the way we think, and having these conversations out loud, getting a little bit deeper, communicating that through. Really, I think there's that is an it thing.
What is
So
it called? Nicholas Carr?
Nicholas Carr, and the book is The Shallows.
All right, I'm gonna have to write that one
It's
down.
super good. I recommend it all the time, just in
And
terms of our thinking about how we're having so much come at us that we're stopping to actually think about our thoughts. So,
Well,
well,
yeah.
all in a
Okay.
day's work.
I mean, so, so we want to not just overthink all of
Yeah,
the things that we're
yeah,
thinking about. We want to overthink anything that you're thinking about too. So send us your spiral, send us your questions, send us the thoughts that are keeping you up at night, so that we can overthink your problems in addition to our own, and just blow our brains up to the point where we can't comprehend anything ever
that's it.
again. So. We're gonna close here,
Yeah,
and we're gonna hope that you got something out of this conversation as much as I did. I appreciate
yeah.
you, Sweets.
Oh, ditto,
Um,
my friend. Yeah.
and we would love to hear from you. So send us your questions or thoughts about all the things we said, or citations of all the stuff I said that I don't remember where I got it from, and then we'll put them in the show notes, and then
Yeah.
people can know.
If you guys want to help us, send us the citations. Yeah.
If you said those things, thank you,
Yeah. Thank you.
because you changed my life.
Totally. Well, till next time. Okay.
Till next time, overthinkers. See you
Bye.
soon.